What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Fight Out Podcast. Today, I'll break down the weekend's upcoming UFC Fight Night card. Adesanya against Imavov. Bit of a decent card, to be fair. I think it's going a little bit under the radar. It's kind of making up for the poor pay-per-view that the weekend after, in my opinion. As always, please remember, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you agree with the picks. Let me know your thoughts on it, and we'll dive right in. We'll start at the top of the card. Obviously, Israel Adesanya against Nassourdine Imavov. I'll be honest, I'm quite torn on the main event. I think stylistically, it's a good fight for Izzy. But when I say it's a good fight for Izzy, it's a good fight for what we know Izzy as in the UFC. Now, we come back against Dricus. He looked really good. Ultimately, he lost. After that, there was a little bit of silence, and then basically Izzy said, he's coming out to have fun fight. He doesn't really care about the belt. He's actually recently, I think today, said, the belt chases him. He doesn't chase the belt. Which at first, when he was talking like that, I took that as he feels like his run as a championship fighter is over, and he'd know that better than anyone. Now that he's taken this fight, and now that he's saying it in that way, I kind of think his mindset's a little bit clearer, and that leads me to believe that it's the Izzy that we know. And if that is the case, I think he gets it done. I wouldn't say, I wouldn't be confident enough to go finish or anything like that, but I think he'll have a little bit much for Imavov. Now, Imavov's on a good run. He's absolutely no slouch. He's lost, obviously, to Strickland. Before that, he's lost years ago. I think it was 2020 or something like that. He's only had 2 losses inside of the UFC. All the ones have been wins. He's got wins over like, he's got Joaquin Buckley, he's got Jared Cannonier. His most recent win was Brendan Allen. So, he's been fighting good people. The loss, obviously, to Strickland is on par with Izzy's lost to Strickland. So, you could argue he's been on a better run. I'm always one that bangs on about strength of schedule. He's been fighting regular while Izzy's taking some time off. Most recent fight, I think, let me check that actually before I say it. So his most recent fight was September 2024. Israel, when did Izzy fight DDP? It was August 2024. But before that, Izzy was September 23. And Imavov was June 24 and Feb 24. So the strength of schedule is one that I always go on about. If people watch the podcast, they know that. But I'm still going Izzy. I wouldn't be confident enough to say finish, but I think this will be very indicative of where Izzy is right now in his career. And I think if he loses this and he's on a 3-fight losing streak, I really don't know where that leaves him. So with that being said, you'd like to think that motivates him, and he'll be back in a big way, get back in the win column. The co-main event's a very intriguing one. Obviously, MVP is a welterweight, or he's been fighting, at welterweight kind of thing. Shara Bullet is a scary, probably one of the scariest guys in the UFC right now. There's a lot that he can do. He looks better every fight. I think sometimes I remember saying on this, he looked a little bit human in one of his most recent fights, but as a contender, he's literally slicing through them rankings. He's currently ranked number 14. Michael Page is coming in at 15, but that's a bit of a knot on ranking. Michael Page is going to be fighting at welterweight in the UFC. He's even said after this, he's going back down basically. When Shara fought, I think it was Mikhail Olasechuk, was when he looked a little bit human, I thought, when it went to the decision. But then he got the brilliant finish in the last fight. Now, it is a very intriguing fight for me. I can see it being a decision. I think the two of them, obviously the very elite strikers. It's not just me that is thinking that. I think it kind of depends on how MVP looks, at this weight. Because like Shara, I think is quite a big, or looks quite a reasonably sized middleweight, whereas MVP weren't necessarily even a massive welterweight in terms of, size. Obviously he's long, he's rangy, but in terms of like muscle mass, weight, putting it on people, it doesn't look like a massive welterweight. And I think it could be a case of one of them where you just fight up at the division above and you just look a little bit flat. Is kind of how I'm potentially anticipating this one going. I remember when Izzy went up and fought Yan at 205, and it was a good fight. It was a good account of Izzy, but he just looked flat. He didn't look like the Izzy of middleweight at the time when he was on that tear as well. And I think this could be quite similar for MVP, which is leading me to believe that Shara will get it done. I haven't looked at the odds, but I pretty much bet that Shara would be favourite. It wouldn't surprise me if he was actually a very strong favourite. So I couldn't see it being a finish, to be honest. I couldn't see him finishing MVP, but I think Shara by decision is going to be the way to go for that. Moving further down into the card, we've got the heavyweight bout in the people's main event slot. I think the card's perfect by the UFC, to be honest. Like, even putting that heavyweight bout where it is one that's definitely intriguing, because like sometimes I think you run the risk of co-main events and main events going to decisions. Like, let's be honest, I personally could see both the co-main and main going to a decision. I said it last week as well. However, last week's card was very exciting in terms of the obviously, the Merab Umar fight. And then with this week's, I think you do run that risk, but I can't see them being boring fights, to be honest with you, the co-main and main. Now, the heavyweight fight, I will more or less guarantee that it's not going to be a boring fight, and I will be very, very surprised if this isn't a finish. I'm going to go Pavlovich. I think Pavlovich's power is something that's now a little bit slept on because of a recent run of form from him. Once Tom beat him, he kind of looked human, and I think that maybe played into his mind as well as his opponent's mind in terms of Pavlovich I'm talking about. I can see him getting this done. I always write off Rosenstrike though. The last fight I wrote him off, the one before I wrote him off, and it's not impersonal. I just on paper I think the matchups look bad for him, and then he comes out and makes a good account of himself. But I am going to go Pavlovich by finish. And I think odds-wise, probably Pavlovich is the favourite anyway, so you're going to have to go finish to get some decent odds. Moving down again, we've got Saeed Nurmagomedov against Vinicius Oliveira. Now, I actually like this Oliveira, and I think the Nurmagomedov name obviously always has people thinking, a certain way. The second they see it, they're like, right, strong favourites, he's going to absolutely dominate. And it was very interesting, actually, what Dan Hooker said today or yesterday on the Ariel Helwani show about the myth of Islam, Khabib, the Dagestani boys, as he called them. And he was like, you've never seen them come out and admit they were tired or hurt or anything like that. And he was talking about Usman the weekend after his fight against Paul Hughes, basically saying, he underestimated Paul Hughes, he pushed him to the limit, that kind of thing. And it was a very interesting insight into the mind and psyche of a fighter. And I think, with the Nurmagomedov name, my point being, when you see it, you do kind of think, right, these are, going to dominate. I'm going to push him for the win. Now, I'm really on the fence on this fight because, like I said, I actually really like Vinicius Oliveira. And I kind of am buying into the myth of, the Nurmagomedov name. He's on an okay run. Obviously, he's lost inside the UFC anyway, a couple of times, so he's not one of the unbeaten Nurmagomedovs, but he's got quite a few fights on in the UFC. I think he's got 7 or 8 fights, something like that. So he's kind of not been around a long time, but he's getting there. Vinicius Oliveira hasn't got as many fights in the UFC, but he had a lot of fights outside of the UFC, which I usually like in a fighter. He came in off the Contender Series, and he hasn't been beaten, I don't think, in the UFC. Let me check. No, he hasn't been beaten in the UFC. So there's a lot, I think this fight is actually quite close. Again, I don't want to bang on about it, but I haven't looked at the odds. I'd imagine they were close, but probably Nurmagomedov just favoured it. I'd be inclined to go Oliveira, to be honest. And I think Oliveira might get it done. And if he's not the favourite, obviously that's a nice odds booster for the accumulator. Moving into the last fight on the main card, there's been a little bit of a shift around, hasn't he? So I believe the last fight, or the first fight on the main card, is Naimov against Karnofsky. Now, Khan Offley has got one of the best nicknames in the sport, Genghis Khan Offley. You know, you cannot beat that nickname, and I backed him last time with the nickname alone, and he got beat. So I'm not going to fall for that one again, because I do like Naimov as well. I think, you know, he's one of them coming from kind of that like Eastern Bloc of Europe and stuff. Looks okay from what I've seen. I can't remember who his last fight was, so I'm just going to pull that up. Because I remember seeing it. Pretty sure he got beat the last one. Yeah, he got beat again on the Whittaker Alaskarov card. That's right, yeah. And before that, he was on a nice little run. So he had 3 wins inside the UFC. He beat Nathaniel Wood as well. I remember that one on the Makhachev Volkanovski card. And then he got beat on the last one on the Whittaker card. That's right. Now, obviously, I hate pushing a fighter that's coming off a loss, but you know, you've got to win again eventually. Genghis Khan is also coming off a loss, and that was the one that I was backing him for last time on the Cannonier versus Ohio card. So I'm going to stick with my gut and go with Naimov for the prediction here. Now, the only other fight that I'm not sure of the placement right now is Fared Ziem against Mike Davis. I'm not sure if that's on the main card. That's a banger of a fight, by the way, and I'm going Davis in it. Not sure if it's on the main card, so I'm not going to talk too much about it in case it's not. Just give it a kind of honourable mention. Terence McKinney's also fighting. To be honest, it's a bit of a fight that he could lose, to be fair, which is a shame, because there was one time when he was talking about McKinney v Paddy, and I really did like the sound and the look of that fight. But yeah, in terms of the prelims, I reckon there's going to be a couple of prelim fights that I haven't necessarily heard of, but they're going to be a bit of a banger of a fight. So that concludes my picks. I'm just going to round them up now, so it's quite clear what I've gone for. So I'm going Naimov in the Naimov versus Khan Offley fight. Going Vinicius Oliveira in the Nurmagomedov versus Oliveira fight. I'm going Sergey Pavlovich via finish against Jairzinho Rosenstruck. I'm going Shara Magomedov just by decision in the Michael Page fight. And I'm going Israel Adesanya in the middleweight main event. And if there is Fared Ziem against Mike Davis on the main card, I'm going to go Mike Davis in that fight as well. But I've got a feeling that fight is going to be a banger. My prediction for fight of the night is going to be, I actually think it's going to be, could be Shara against MVP, to be honest. And I've got a feeling that Pavlovich is going to get knockout of the night or performance of the night, because I think he's going to knock Jairzinho out, or I'm hoping he's going to anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna go out on a little bit of a bold one and go against the main event and say that Shara versus MVP is going to be fight of the night. And that concludes the card talk. So let me know if you think I'm talking absolutely shite in the comments. Last week I had a decent little go of it. There was one, like I said on the post show, I actually changed up the ACCA because of the switch around with the card and stuff. So hopefully I want to go 5 for 5 this week on the 5 that I think is on the main card, which doesn't include the Fared Ziem against what's his name? Mike Davis, isn't it? Mike Davis fight. My went blank there. So yeah, I want to go 5 for 5 out of the other ones, and then hopefully if that is on there, I can go 6 for 6. But there's a few fights here that are on knife edge. I think obviously Rosenstruck could beat Pavlovich, no question about it, at heavyweight. It's like its own sport. MVP could shock us all and actually make a good run against Magomedov, and potentially then, you know, where does that leave him at middleweight? Does he stay there? He's just been beat by Ian Gary at welterweight. Ian Gary's obviously knocking on the door of a title, so MVP is probably a few fights away from a title. He beats Shara Bullet, maybe fight someone else at middleweight, all of a sudden could be in a title picture there, especially with the way it's going. So yeah, there's a few close fights on a knife edge. Even the main event, Izzy, we don't know where Izzy is at this stage in his career. You'd like to think, because he's fighting, you know, an up and coming contender, that he's in the right round frame. You know, he's not. This isn't a fun fight, in my opinion, for Izzy. Like the way he said he's only looking for fun fights, I took that as like when he was fighting Anderson Silva, or he's gonna come in and he's gonna fight. I mean, not actually Nick Diaz, but that kind of fighter where, you know, they're at that stage in their career. So this isn't what I'd class as a fun fight for Izzy. This is Izzy trying to get back in that title picture, if you ask me, and hopefully that is the case. So yeah, let me know what you think of the predictions. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. We can have a little chat down there. Like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind, if you want to see more of these videos, because it'll really help the channel, and obviously we know which type of videos that you want to see. Appreciate you watching if you've got all the way through to the end. Hope you have a good weekend watching the UFC, and we'll see you in the next one.